Hi, my beautiful friends. Welcome to my channel, Tropical Empress in Spirit. My name is Amanda. Hello. How are y'all beautiful people doing today? I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. Today I wanted to ask y'all a question that I think a lot of people in the world wonder about. At least based on what I've read and on other social media platforms. There's always this curiosity and a lot of questions surrounding telepathy. Is telepathy real? And, how can I do telepathy? How can I telepathically communicate with someone and so on? And then you get the skeptics out there who flat out will say, oh, that's hogwash. It doesn't exist. That's just your imagination. As many of them will say about all gifts, concerning the psychic ability, the spiritual world, anything along that lines, they just think it's BS, and you need to go see a shrink. Well, I think, what I first have to address is, does it exist? Like, can you communicate telepathically with someone else who's living? And the simple answer is yes. Now, does that mean that everyone can do it? No, I don't believe so. I think it's something that you got to be in tune to. And depending on your beliefs, some will, say that, in order to have any kind of psychic ability, it has to run in your DNA. It runs in your family. And I think to a certain point, there is some of that to where it might be more dominant, to where, in your DNA somehow you inherit these gifts without trying. You're just born with them, which seemed to be, my situation. What I come to realize, as my maternal grandmother told me, that psychics runs in our family. So, but it's that one ability that I think scares a lot of people. And there's a lot of misunderstandings around it and how it works. And so I kind of want to cover that today and tell you about the first time I experienced it, when I didn't know I was a telepath until it just stumbled upon me. Just fell in my lap one day unexpectedly. Um, Telepathy is the ability to communicate, and it's strictly thought. It's mind-to-mind communication using pure thought, which can be, just your thoughts, even your emotions, or you can even send someone like a visual image of like a memory. Um, but it's not hearing voices like some would say, Um, if you're hearing voices, that's either a clear audience where like spirit communication, the deceased is trying to communicate with you. Could it also be a mental illness? Yeah, that's possible too. I'm not a doctor. I'm not any kind of medical professional. So, if you're hearing voices and aren't sure, please go see a doctor. This is for entertainment purposes only. But some people confuse telepathy with an empath. So I hope, this isn't confusing. I'm going to try and break it down for y'all. As I said, telepathy is straight mind-to-mind communication using pure thought. To where an empath is strictly feeling others' emotions like it's their own. So, I think there is a lot of disbelief in it, because I think this is one of those abilities that truly scares people. It's where they're like, what, you can read my thoughts, you can read my mind anytime and know what I'm thinking, and, you're afraid to, have any thoughts because you're afraid the person standing next to you is picking up everything, reading your mind, as they say. No, it doesn't work like that. Most cases that it's really, what you don't realize is you're sending your thoughts to that person, or at the minimum, you're sending it out into the universe, and whoever's a telepath can receive those thoughts. So, if you feel like emotions, like I said, that's an empath. And there is another ability called clear empathy, which I do have. I'm an empath, I'm a telepath, and I have the clear empathy ability too, which is to be able to feel emotions from a long distance. So the first time that I realized I was a telepath, I was about 17, 18 years old. And I was at home one night watching TV. I was watching one of those crime scene investigation documentaries. And it was about a woman who had been murdered. And the cops were investigating who, murdered her, and were looking for the forensics evidence to prove who the killer was. And as I'm sitting there watching this, I suddenly get a rush of emotions that hits me out of nowhere. And they were very loving, good emotions, like the kind of emotions you feel when you're in love with someone. It just overwhelmed me. And with it came thoughts of, well, I can see us getting married one day. And I wonder what our kids would look like. And I'm just like, what? I'm like, what kind of crazy nonsense is this? Because I'm focused on the TV and what I'm watching, but that had nothing to do with what was on the TV. And I sat there and it's like, oh wow, this is my boyfriend. And I knew it. I couldn't tell you how I knew, but I knew it was him. And how, like, I was picking up his thoughts, and I realized that, but it took me by surprise, unexpectedly. And, I instantly wanted to pick up the phone and call him, but it was late. And he lived at home with his parents, and I didn't want to call and wake up his parents. So I decided that I would wait until I saw him, which I think I was going to see him the next day or the day after. We already made plans for date night. He was going to come out and see me, and, we were going to go out to dinner or whatever. So when it came to us, having our date, we went out to eat, went to a restaurant, and after, we sat down at a table and gave the server our order, I just looked at him. I told him, I said, I know you were in deep thought of me the other night, and I can tell you exactly what you were thinking. And he just looked at me. He was like, okay, what? I said, you were thinking about, how you can see us getting married one day and what our lives will be like. And you were also wondering what our kids, would look like, who they would look like. And his jaw just dropped to the floor right in front of me. And he looked at me, he was like, how did you do that? And I told him, I said, I don't know. I can't explain it. I don't know how it happened. I said, but obviously I'm right by your reaction and the look on your face. And he looked at me and shook his head and said, yes, that I was correct. So that was confirmation that I was telepathic and I can receive people's thoughts, without me doing anything. And that's the thing. It's so random. And, so I had to spend some time trying to figure out what exactly this was. As I understood that it had to be some kind of psychic ability, but to what it wasn't anything I've ever experienced before. So, of course, I go on the internet, and this is back when you have dial-up, and AOL was a big thing, So there wasn't a lot of information out there about what it was I experienced. And even what little information was out there on the internet back then always talked about, oh, it doesn't exist, it's hogwash, whatever, it's like, no, even I know that this is, real, it exists. People like me in the world do exist. We do have that ability to, communicate telepathically with the living, with others. And you and have some who can communicate with animals. That's a form of telepathic communication too, which I've never tried, I've never experienced. I've only experienced it with humans. So it really opened up a whole new world for me in a way that scared me. Because I didn't like it. I didn't want to know what his thoughts were or anyone else's thoughts, because to me that's private. Your thoughts are your thoughts. Unless you want to share them with me or share them with the world, It's none of my business what's going on in your mind, you know. But this happened, and I had to like come to accepting it and to understand it, that I have this ability. And so, like I said, what was out there on the internet didn't give me a whole lot of information to understand it. And depending on who you ask, will tell you either, some people have this belief that psychics only runs in families, like it's in your DNA. To where others believe that everyone, has some form of psychic ability. Some are stronger than others, and not everyone has the same type of ability. Every psychic is different. And for me, I have multiple abilities. And, but for me, it's like, I can't, even as a telepath, I'm not going around scanning your brains trying to pick up what you're thinking. Because understand me, it is you, whether you realize it or not, putting that thought out into the universe, and I just happen to pick it up. And 9 times out of 10, I've experienced it with people close to me. Yeah, I've experienced it with romantic partners, but I've even experienced it with family members, whether they were blood related to me or not. I've experienced it with them too, and even a couple of friends. So where I just know. And it's not me trying to pick it up. I'm not doing anything. It's really very random. Like, I'll give you another example. After I had met my husband and we had been married, a few years, he went out of town. He went up to Chicago for the company he worked for, to their corporate headquarters. And I was at home, fiddling around, doing whatever. I couldn't even tell you what I was doing, but I was at home. And suddenly, I get this pressure in my head, like I got a headache. And with it came um, something having to do with this guy and I heard the guy's name. The thought of his name came to mind. And I immediately knew that was my husband. And so I'm like, okay, well, I guess I can call him, whether he'll admit it to me or not is completely different. I don't know. I just knew that I picked up on him. I could tell he was stressed out and he was worried about something. So I went through and I picked up the phone and I called him and I said, hey, what's wrong? What's going on? I said, talk to me. I said, because I know you're stressed out. I can feel it. And I said, and I know you're stressed out about so-and-so. And he was like, how'd you know? I'm like, I told you. I'm psychic. And I told you. I'm a telepath. I said, so I know you're stressed out worrying about so-and-so. It was one of the guys that reports to him. And he was just blown away by, what I knew. And he's like, yeah, I just got out of a meeting with my boss and we were talking about that person and what to do and, how to handle them and blah, blah, blah. So he was stressed out. So that was, something new. And I was surprised that my husband openly admitted to me that I had picked it up. I was right. But as you can see, I'm at home. I'm nowhere near my husband. And the same thing with my ex-boyfriend. When I first had my first experience, he was an hour away from me. But you always get all these crazy people who want to say, oh, well, you're just reading my body language. Of course you know what I'm thinking. No. I don't have to be anywhere near you to get your thoughts. You can be in another state, even in another country, and I'll get it if you put it out there in the universe. But it's not me picking around trying to figure out what you're thinking. It's random. It's like I'll be focused on one thing. Let's just say I'm cleaning house, and then suddenly that thought just pops in my head, and I pretty much know who it is. Because sometimes it'll be just the thoughts alone that will tell me who it is. Other times I'll get a song that'll start playing in my head. That it's like that connection to where, my, antenna, goes up and I know who it is, and then I'll get their thoughts behind it. But it's not like many times it's not like even I'm getting like a whole sentence. It might just be a few words here and there. Sometimes I might get a whole sentence, sometimes I don't. But I'm not trying to like pick around trying to figure out what you're thinking. So it's you sending out the information into the universe. And I just so happen to pick it up. And it's, one of those abilities that I've learned that I don't, like I said, I don't have to be anywhere near you to get it. But it's you setting it into the universe like, people would describe it like your own, like a sub channel. And that's the best way I can describe it. Now, can I send messages too? Yeah. I've only done it once though. And like I said, I don't like it. Telepathy to me is that one ability that I think is overrated. When it comes to trying to communicate telepathically with other people, with the living. But I understand where it can be helpful. Like in an emergency situation where that person, has an emergency, but they have no phone, no way of contacting you to let you know that, there's an emergency. So in those cases, I understand where it can be useful, just so you know. But in general, I I have no use for it. And people always think that it's always someone is thinking of you, and that's the only thing I'm gonna pick up. No, I pick up random crap from people around me, like my husband. Like I remember one time he was driving, he was on the road. Of course, I didn't know this. I was at home, but he was at work, and apparently he left work to go to lunch. And I suddenly get these thoughts of swear words like you MF or USOB, and I was like, what the hell is this, And I realized it was my husband, and he was having road rage. So I waited a few minutes because I realized he had to be on the road. So I waited, hoping he would, pull over or get to wherever his destination was before I picked up the phone and called him. And I called him and I'm like, what's going on? I said, why are you over there, cussing and swearing and, I got this, you said this and you said that, you MFR, you SOB and, get out of my way. And it's like, yeah, I just pulled up at work and yeah, some guy cut me off. So I was cussing at him. So like I said, it's random crap that has nothing to do with me, but I get it. And I normally can tune in to who it is, but it's not me trying. I'm not doing anything. It comes to me just automatic out of nowhere. And I always notice it. It's like just I will be focused on one thing, like cleaning house. And then suddenly my focus of the thought of cleaning house, like say I'm just scrubbing the bathtub. I'm, paying attention to scrubbing the bathtub, but then I get that random thought, like, like with my husband cussing up a storm. That's how it happens with me. So it's not me trying to get into your head. And I think that's something that people need to understand is that your thoughts are protected. You don't need to go around worrying about people like me being able to pick up every nick and cranny of what you're thinking, because that's not the way it works. Now, that's not to say that there are those rare telepaths who can get into your head and get all the information they want. Yeah, I believe they exist, but I believe they're very, very rare. But I'm not one of those people. And when I pick up your thoughts, it's like I said, it's like you sending it out into the universe through your own personal channel to me that I'm just happen to be tuned in to, and I pick it up. But I did experience a time where someone wanted to communicate with me telepathically, and I didn't like it. My husband, a few years back, he had started an account on another social media platform where people ask questions and others will go on there and answer the questions. And there was someone, I think, because my husband had shared some of my own psychic experiences, answering questions and such. And so one afternoon, I get, someone, I'm receiving their thoughts and I understand. It's someone else's thoughts. Who it is, I didn't know at first until they told me who they were. So it was some girl. She wanted to know if I could be her mentor, and teach her, how to be a stronger telepath and, do other psychic abilities. And it just threw me off. I'm like, this is crazy. I said, who are you? And of course, this is me doing it telepathically through my mind. And she gave me her name, and I just sent a message back to her, telepathically. No, you're trying to do it with the wrong person. I said, and coming into my energy like this, no, don't ever do it again because I don't like it. And, of course, I didn't put my shield up that day, so she got to me. And so I still thought it was crazy, though, that, what I just experienced with this girl, just random. And so I told my husband about it. I said, you're not going to believe what happened to me today. He's like, what? And I told him what happened. And I told him her name. And so he went on there and looked on his account to see if this girl was someone who followed him. And sure enough, her name was right there. And that kind of blew me away. It's like, no, I don't want this happening again. I don't like it. I just, it's not my favorite ability. But like I said, I understand its purposes for emergency cases. When you have a loved one that has some type of emergency, but they have no way of being able to call and reach you. So that way is another way, you can get it and receive, that information to know what's going on. But most cases, telepaths like me who can, telepathically communicate with the living, we don't even try and use it. Like, I don't use my gift in that way. I've never tried to, except for that one time when that girl came into my energy asking me for my help. I'm not out there like trying to send thoughts to, my husband or anyone else. And when their thoughts come to me, I make note of it. And that's it, and 9 times out of 10, I'll call them and let them know, listen, I just picked up your thoughts and I just wanted you to know. And, so is there something I need to know, or it's just something random? And, and they'll confirm to me that what I picked up is true. So I always try and break the connection when it happens. And one of those ways I try to do it is to pick up the phone and call that person, so I don't get any more of their thoughts, because I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to be nosy and worry about what they're thinking. Are they thinking about me, or what else is going on in their head? No, I'm not trying to do that, but I do receive it. And so my way is to be able to break that connection so it stops it. And so if I can get them on the phone and talk to them directly, then I can, interrupt that connection right then. So, but for telepaths like me, we're not trying to telepathically communicate with each other. Okay, it's easier for me to pick up the phone and call you or send you a text message or an email than to sit there and have a two-way communication telepathically back and forth. I have no interest in doing that, and I don't try and do that. But it's just random when I get their thoughts, I pick it up like an antenna to a radio. You just pick it up and you become the receiver. And so I do receive some people's thoughts at times, and it's still very random. But I know this is an ability that scares people. I understand that. I understand why people don't want to believe it exists. But I mean, to me, that's true about all psychic abilities in the spirit world. It freaks people out. And even for some, or I could say for probably more than half, they also don't like it or don't want to believe it because it's like an envious thing. Like, Why is it that you have this ability and I don't? There's a lot of those, so they're always gonna, be doubtful and even you could say like hateful towards you because, you have this ability and they don't. Or at least they're not in tune with it, or try to. And then you have others who have had some kind of psychic experience, but they won't mention it. They won't admit it because they don't want to be seen and viewed as being crazy, needing psychiatric help, as most will say. So there are those people, so I get it. But to me, it's also overrated. It's just something I can live without. Um, but it does exist. And, to really understand a telepath and how to separate, because, like I said earlier, people will confuse a telepath with an empath. So, I'll try and break it down for you, like my first experience with my ex-boyfriend. When I got both his thoughts and the emotions he was feeling. You have to understand, his thoughts, that was straight telepathic. His emotions, like me feeling like his deep love for me, that was the empath side of it. So again, a telepath, it is thoughts, and an empath, it's emotions or feelings. And so I've even had experiences where it's been more of an empath connection than telepath, where I will pick up someone's emotions who's 2 hours away from me. And I don't even realize that I'm picking up their emotions, what they're going through. But I feel it like it's my own. And when I've experienced it, it doesn't make sense to me. And it's taken, a couple days for me to figure it out until I realize who it is. But even in that time when I experienced that, I didn't get any of their thoughts. All I got was straight emotions. So that's clear empathy. But, there's always those people that are going to say, well, of course you're reading my mind because I'm right in front of you. You're reading my body language. No. Because, like, I can remember another time, my husband was inside the house. I was outside at our other house, sitting on the front porch, watching the deer, because we get deer in the yard. And suddenly I get a thought, where's that knife? I'm like, okay, I understand this is my husband. So I waited a few minutes, and, because I didn't want to scare the deer away who were out there eating corn. I just threw out there for them. And then I walked inside, and I went straight to the kitchen, and I pulled out the knife he was looking for, and I handed it to him. And he just looked at me and laughed, and he was like, there you go, reading my mind again. I was just wondering and looking for this knife like 5-10 minutes ago. I said, well, here it is. And that was without question. Like, I'm outside on the porch. He's inside the house. So it's not like we can see each other. And I knew what his thoughts were in that moment. He was looking for a knife. So, and without asking him, I went straight to the kitchen and got it for him and gave it to him. So it's things like that. It's just sometimes it's silly stuff like that. Just your everyday, routine things you do. Doesn't have to be just someone just thinking of you. It's all kinds of things, all kinds of thoughts that can come to you that you're not trying to get. Just like me being out there, I'm more focused on watching the deer than I am worrying about what my husband's thinking. I mean, thinking about looking for a knife, I mean, that's just silly, but that's a lot of what people say about it, though, is you're still just reading someone's body language, and it's like, yeah, that's not possible when you aren't even in the same room as that person, let alone even times where I've experienced this. You're not in the same city or even the same state for that matter, but I pick it up, and I know. So, does it happen with everybody? No. And I think that's the other thing I want people to understand. For me, and I'm, a pretty strong telepath, I can tell you I've only had telepathic communication with a handful of people through my life. That's it. Okay, when I was shooting pool and bowling and working, I was around people all the time. And I never got any of their thoughts. Nor was I trying to get their thoughts, for that matter. I didn't care. It's like, what you're thinking is none of my business and is not important to me. So, but the ones that I know, without a question of a doubt, it's only been with a handful of people. Through telepathy and an empath, I've learned that. And so yeah, for some people, I understand it's bizarre. And there's even the people out there that, want to go through and argue about, well, there's been scientists who've studied this and they all say it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. It's not real. It's like, it always cracks me up when people will say that. But yet you have all these big corporations who are spending billions of dollars to try and access, that telepathic ability, trying to research it. Even governments are, investigating it, spending billions upon billions of dollars. If it wasn't real, if it didn't exist, they would not be spending that kind of money into it and wanting to research it. And, if you ever read some of their reports, like I think one of them was Sony, I think they, had spent billions of dollars researching it. Even a lot of their reports, the information is redacted, or you can't read the whole report. So, but you want to tell me it doesn't exist? Well, if it didn't exist, they wouldn't be sitting there redacting all information to where you can't make sense of what it is that they learned or found out. So, I always get tickled about that when people mention that. And even, the ones that, again, they want to say, well, what am I thinking right now? If you're a real telepath, what am I thinking right now? Dude, I don't care what you're thinking. That's what you don't understand. And you don't understand how it works. And I'm not going to sit here and try and explain myself to you. I'm not going to sit here and try and prove myself to you. And even to try and explain how it works, you're still not going to believe it. You're, closed-minded to it. So what's the point? So I refuse to argue with people. It's not worth the time. I don't have to prove myself to anyone. Over the years, like I said, I've learned myself just confirmations through my loved ones that this is real, that I do have this ability. Does that mean it happens every day? No, it doesn't. It doesn't happen to me every day. It's random. But when it does happen, I'm fully aware. And I pick it up naturally without hesitation. And so it's interesting. It makes my life interesting at times, especially some of the things that I do get, some other people's thoughts, just the random things, or just even my husband, like the whole road rage thing. It's like, this is ridiculous. It's like, I need to be more focused on cleaning my house, and, you out there having road rage with someone, who just cut you off, but then there was a time where it was medically important that I knew, but that's something I'll have to share with you another day, and share other times where I've experienced telepathic communication with others. So this is just where I wanted to start it off at and kind of get into it, because this is one of the abilities that I haven't talked about yet or mentioned a whole lot. If I have, it's just been brief, but I wanted to kind of like talk about it today, and so that people who are curious or have questions, wanting more understanding, clarification, how does it work, and to understand the difference, of what it is and what it's not. So, I'll just say it again. Telepathy is mind-to-mind communication using pure thought. It is just someone's thoughts. It can be even their emotions, or someone sharing a visual memory, or an image of something. It's not hearing voices. And, if you're hearing voices, like I said, that could be clairaudience, and that could be, clairaudience as far as communicating with the deceased, spirits of the deceased, Or, you might have some kind of mental illness that you may need to go see a doctor for. I'm not a doctor, so don't ask me. But for the ones who think it's, can you pick up someone's emotions? Yes, and actually feel them. Yes, but that's not telepathy. That's an empath, and that's known as clear empathy. So yeah, I know it can be confusing, but there is distinct differences. One is thoughts, the other one is actual emotions, like feelings where you feel it. Or you can even feel like, someone, like, just say, they're having a headache, like how it was for my husband. That was the empath side of it that I picked up. But with it, I got his thoughts too in that moment. So you can experience both simultaneously, as I have experienced over the years. Every now and then I'll get both, but sometimes it's only the telepathic side, and other times it's the empath side of it. And then there are those times where it's both coming together, where I pick up both. So I hope this has been informative for you all, and it provides some clarification, understanding, in case you're confused or just wondering, because I know so many people have so many questions about it and are just worried if someone like me can, go through and pick up every single thought you have. No, it doesn't work that way. And in most cases, people like me who are telepaths, who can telepathically communicate with the living, it's bits and pieces. It's like a few words, maybe a whole sentence, but that's it. It's nothing beyond that from my experience, but others might have been able to experience something more. So it'd be interesting if you think you have experienced, some type of telepathic communication with the living. I'd love to hear from you. Leave me a comment. Let me know if this is something, a topic that interests you, and I can go into it further and give you more details about it and share more of my experiences in the future with you. But until then, I'm going to end it here, and I'm going to wish you all a wonderful day, many blessings, all the love, all the good things in this life we all want. Your good health, prosperity, happiness, joy, all those wonderful things. I'm wishing that all to you all and sending much love. Until next time, be good.